Ready to go.
Order!
The new John Bercow speaks. Well, welcome. I see some new faces, so I should explain that the interview takes 20 minutes, and there are no questions from the floor afterwards, but Matthew has agreed to stay and talk to us over more drinks downstairs afterwards. So while it is time limited, it is not drink limited. So this is the fifth in our series of freedoms fighters, honouring those who over the years have fought for free markets and individual liberty. Tonight it's Matthew Elliott, and my first question is to ask, because you founded or headed many of our side's campaigns, including TaxPayers Alliance, Big Brother Watch, No to AV, Business for Britain, and Vote Leave. If you had to name one of those which you thought was the most satisfying, which would it be?
That's a tough one. That's like asking a parent to choose between children.
Exactly. These are all your children.
I think it would have to be the TaxPayers Alliance. Because you know, 15 years after it was founded, it's still going, and it's still going without any involvement from me. So it's one of these organisations that people often think have been going for decades, and I think it'll be going for decades to come, but without my involvement, which is good.
Okay, well, speaking as someone whose outfit has been going for decades, I think I already know the answer to the second question. Which of those organisations was the most fun?
The most fun, I would say, is Business for Britain.
Really? Why? Why?
Because it was very disruptive of how businesses were represented in the UK.
Oh, yes.
So it really showed that business opinion was split on not only the issue of the EU, but also many other issues. And also, of course, it led to the Vote Leave campaign. And many incidents in the referendum weren't that fun at the time. I'm sort of thinking of private detectives stalking me and libel writs and all that sort of stuff.
Crisis management, yeah.
But looking back, they were all quite fun.
Now, your father was a Labour voting trade unionist.
Correct.
Yet, at the age of 10, you joined the Conservatives as Master Matthew Elliott. Now, obviously, we all want to know, did any family friction result from this?
I think my parents were more amused that I joined the Conservatives at such a young age. And there was friction, but at the sort of Sunday dinner table, because my grandfather was a retailer. He had his own shop and then had a collection of shops. And he was the real Thatcherite. So it was that tension between the Thatcherite in the 80s versus my dad.
So you've got three generations, Thatcherite right,
yes.
Labour trade unionist in the middle, and young Thatcherite right.
Yes.
It was reported, by the way, I don't know whether it's true or not, that you were once vetoed for a job by Nick Clegg. Is that true?
That is true.
What happened?
So this was after the No to AV referendum, and Steve Hilton wanted me to come into number 10 to basically head up outreach to the sort of centre-right. And Nick Clegg got wind of it and vetoed it, which led me to sort of setting up Business for Britain, which I think was a bit of a headache for the government. And this is not the first time this has happened.
Yeah.
I came in the final two to be David Davis's chief of staff back in the early 2000s. And I didn't get that job, so I set up the TaxPayers Alliance.
Very good.
So you think they'd sort of start learning the lesson of...
Every time they turn you down, you start up a new organisation.
Yes.
Okay. Well, back to your childhood. You were born in Leeds. You attended Leeds Grammar School.
Yep.
Do you ever go back, for school reunions? Yeah.
I go back to speak every other year. I spoke at a speech day.
You've done a speech day, yeah?
Done a speech day.
Did you present books to the staff?
I did all of that and
yes.
shake lots of hands and did a big speech about the agents of change, basically how they should aspire to change the world.
Oh, very good, yes. In your past, you've attended events run by Conservative Friends of Russia. Those in days when we enjoyed rather better relations than we do now. Have you thought of suggesting that that organisation might now start promoting tourism to places like Salisbury Cathedral?
I'm probably one of the few people in the country who would happily go to Salisbury Cathedral 2 days in a row. So I'm a big fan of visiting churches and cathedrals. But that's...
Well, what I'm really asking is, do you think maybe, perhaps in light of recent events, we might backtrack somewhat about promoting international friendship of that nature?
I think I should explain this story. So basically, this is one of the instances where my sort of rational mind was overridden by romance. And at the time I was dating a girl who had a big love of Russian art. So I get this invite through for a party at the Russian embassy. It was sent out by, I think, Malcolm Rifkin, who was a former Foreign Secretary. So we go along there, and then I get invited by Malcolm Rifkin to on this trip to Russia, which the British Embassy is involved in. So we went over there, but probably not my finest hour, and it's really come back to bite me on the bum.
It's some sort of junket, is it? It wasn't a junket. You know.
It was a fact-finding mission.
Yes. You've been named as one of the most influential campaigners in UK politics. Now, the interesting question is, you did a BSc in government. Now, did that influence you to choose that career? Or had you already decided on that kind of career and therefore took the BSc in government? Which way round was it?
So by that point, I'd already joined the Conservative Party, age 10. I'd done a year out working on an election. So really it was decided in advance, but I think it did teach me a lot. So, for example, I like public choice theory. Right. So I was taught about Anthony Downs and his median voter theorem, and lots of those ideas from that led to the sort of strategies for winning referendums like No to AV and the Vote Leave campaign.
Okay, so it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
When you were at university, you were involved in the Hayek Society. Is that when you first became attracted to free market libertarianism? Through that society? Or?
It was actually before then. So my A-level economics teacher at East Grammar School, he taught us economics using Milton Friedman's Free to Choose.
Very sound. Very
sound. So I was introduced that way, and then when I came down to LSE, Freshers' Fair, there was a store there for the Hayek Society, and it was headed up at the time by Alistair Heath, who of course is now editor of Sunday Telegraph.
Yeah. Okay. Do I remember seeing you come to Next Generation meetings at that time as a member of that Hayek Society?
Very, very true.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
And I certainly remember you addressing much later meetings of the TNG. So we actually go way back, don't we?
We do.
Yeah, very good. We normally ask our speakers some quickies about their preferences. You know, are you a beer man or a wine man?
Wine.
And what type of wine?
Malbec.
Oh, Argentine.
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, snap. Good. What counts as your favourite snack? Peanuts, crisps, cashew nuts?
I like olives. I'm very partial to cheese and brie.
Oh, well, I eat about 1% of Britain's cheese consumption, so we can say snap on that one. Do you have a notion of what might be your ideal holiday? A favourite country?
Favourite country, the US. Favourite place, the Outer Banks of North Carolina, where Sarah, my wife, has a beach house.
Oh, wow. For how many months of the year is it warm there?
8.
Oh, right, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Is there a wine bar or restaurant that you like going to, a regular one?
There is an Italian restaurant called O Sole Mio in Pimlico, which I've been going to on Belgrave Road. I've been going there for about 20 years. I've got my own table in the corner and go there at least once a fortnight.
That's on the corner of Warwick Way and Wilton Road,
Correct.
isn't it? Yeah, there you go. You ever participated in any sports?
I play pool.
Really?
And whenever I have meetings with John O'Connell at TaxPayers Alliance, it's usually over a game of pool.
Are you any good?
He beats me.
Now, pool rather than
I watch snooker but play pool.
Okay, 8 ball, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What about? Did you follow sports, by the way, apart from snooker? Sorry, pool.
Not particularly.
What about music? Do you have any favourite kind of music?
I like my sort of choral music and my sort of organ music. I play the organ.
Really, in a church?
I do.
Oh,
and this caused...
when did you start doing that?
When I was about 11, 12.
Right, okay.
Lots of the very sort of hard Brexiteers during the referendum viewed this with great suspicion. So, of course, Edward Heath played the organ as well.
Yeah. So it's a bit European, isn't it? You were, of course, press officer for the European Foundation from the year 2000. I should explain that is by no means a pro-federal union organisation. No. Have you always been a Eurosceptic?
Always anti-Euro, but I was always for more sort of reforming the EU, then gradually over time for renegotiating our membership, then had the position of change or go, and then finally a Brexiteer.
Yeah. Once you realised we can't change it from within.
Correct.
You came round to coming out.
Yeah.
Okay. It's often said, you know, we human beings learn from our mistakes. Would you get to name any that you've made, that you've learned from?
Lots. I would say that after the referendum, I think that vote leave left the playing field too early. And I think that in that sort of weekend afterwards, as we should have been defining our victory and explaining how it was about taking back control and sovereignty and independence rather than about migration, we weren't out there making that case. I think a lot of the mistakes that have happened since have been because people misinterpreted the result.
Mm. Yeah. When Total Politics did a survey in 2010, they put you amongst the top 25 people in Britain. Right. And yet, by 2017, when Ian Dale had drawn up his list, you were only down to 85th on that list. Now, was this a statistical blip or something more sinister that happened?
Comparing apples and oranges, in the sense that one didn't include MPs. So one was purely think tankers and influencers, the other one was parliamentarians and MPs, peers, that sort of thing.
Now, of course, like many in this room, you support liberalising both economic policy and indeed social policies. It's actually not a very common position in Britain. No. Usually those who support economic liberalisation are quite hard on social and vice versa.
Yeah.
Do you think the two are intertwined?
I do, because I think that if a politician or a government has a big instinct to intervene in the economy, high taxes, high regulation, they also start meddling in other aspects of our lives as well, sort of the nanny state side of things. So yes, I think that it's very rare to get politicians who are one or the other. So I think we need to sort of fight on both fronts. That's why I set up Big Brother Watch. Okay.
Was there a point in your life when you suddenly became converted? You know, like the Road to Damascus moment when you opened Karl Popper's Open Society and suddenly realised you were one of those. You know, was there a moment, you remember, when you became a free market libertarian? Or you know, have you always been so? Or did it just happen gradually?
Over time. So it was those sort of lunchtime debates, you know, reinforced by my A-level economics, and then the Hayek Society, and then attending events here, and so it's a gradual process.
Let's raise the delicate subject of those fines levied by the Electoral Commission on some of the Vote Leave campaigners, participants. Are you confident they'll be overturned? I mean, we're all confident they're unjust, yes, of course, but you know, law and justice sometimes separate.
I think that we've won the moral argument there. I think the High Court the other week, in saying that the Electoral Commission had given us the duff advice that we followed, I think that means we've won the moral argument. Now, it's always difficult to win, to beat regulators, and the court system may side with the regulators, who knows on this, but I think when it comes to the public at large and how they see it, and how opinion formers see it in Westminster as well, they now blame the Electoral Commission for what happened.
Oh, good. Are you alarmed at the prospect of a Corbyn-led Labour government?
Yes.
Do you think it has more chance of happening than any of us would really like?
My big fear is that if Britain slips into, or the world, I should say, slips into a recession anytime soon, or there's another re-emergence of the financial crisis, I think that many members of the public think that the last financial crisis was solved by right-wing and free market policies, and I think they would now turn to left-wing solutions to such a situation. So I think it would push that sort of shift to the left even further. So I'm really hoping that before the next election, the economy stays buoyant, and that people start to see this sort of see through some of Corbyn's policies.
You know, young people, the ones we hear about, you know, seem almost seduced by socialist ideas, as if they've no recollection of what it actually achieved in practice when it was tried. Does it concern you? Are you optimistic about the future?
I am optimistic, and when I do a fair amount of speaking at universities.
Are you no platformed and silent?
I haven't been yet, thankfully.
There will come a time when they will shout you down.
I hope so, a badge of honour. But I think the number of young people who want to set up businesses and want to be self-employed and don't like the idea of working for one big company throughout their whole lives, I think that shows a great sort of private sector entrepreneurial instinct, which I think that means that even if that sometimes they virtue signal in certain ways, their gut instinct is on the sort of free market right.
That's good. You know, we did surveys with Mori, polling organisation, and we found that there are more women than men want to set up and run their own businesses.
Oh, right.
Yeah. They tend to be smaller. They're the type of businesses they want to run are smaller, ones that they can control directly rather than being, you know, a cog in a giant machine. But it is quite interesting how many want to do that and what a change that has been over a generation. Yeah. Best prediction for Brexit. How is it going to turn out? It's a guess, of course. Nobody knows.
I think that when history writes up Brexit, I think both sides, both sort of European historians and British historians, will say that actually it was a moment which was meant to happen because the UK has never felt 100% comfortable within the EU. Right. And they'll say it was a natural thing that happened, so it's good for both sides, and that the UK, as Churchill said, should be associated but not absorbed into the EU.
I think Dan Hannan, did he not say, you're getting rid of a troublesome tenant and acquiring a friendly neighbour?
Correct.
Some phrase like that. I thought that rather summed it up. Yeah. Do you think it might be that kind of relationship in future?
I think within 15 or 20 years it'll be seen like that.
Mm. But when...
in the meantime...
I myself hope to be safely and quietly dead long before that happens. Yeah. I want to say thank you very much for that. We do these and we stop at 20 minutes. No questions from the floor, but there are drinks downstairs, and Matthew has very kindly agreed to stay and talk. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.